Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Chris sent me a story and said, Steve, check this out from the Daily Mail. And I read the headline and my first thought was, I've already done this story. I just did this story. So I went and looked and I did a similar story. Now, it was in September of last year, which is a little while ago for me to have thought I just did it, but they do tend to blend together after a while. However, this is a brand new story. Florida family left homeless after a rental company hired a cleanout firm to empty the wrong apartment and change the locks. And so a woman moved into a rental with her son and daughter, and then this happened. Family's been left devastated after they returned to their Florida rental home to find all their belongings had vanished. So it does say home and it says apartment, so it says interchangeably, so we'll check this out. By the way, Mackenzie Tetnani wrote this for the Daily Mail. The woman is 58 years old, and her family began moving into the New Port Richey rental on June 8th, the same day the lease took effect. So they signed a lease and were moving in on day one. The family returned a couple days later, and they found the locks had been changed, the home was empty, and they did manage to recover some of their belongings, but what they found was a pile of stuff out by the road that was obviously theirs, but it had been picked over by people going, hey, look at that stuff by the side of the road. So the woman said, I'm shaking so bad when she told the New Port Richey police about this. Officers were responding to a call about a suspected burglary before the family realized their possessions had been taken by their rental company. So when they found the house empty, they called the police. And then they started thinking about it. Wait, would burglars really steal everything and then leave half of it out by the road? Seems like somebody didn't get the memo that you were moving in, one of the cops said. Body cam footage shows officers walking through the home, which is eerily empty, their flashlight beams bouncing off of spotless walls. Speaking to ABC Action News, the woman said, we paid the rent. It was our house to put our stuff in. Now, a daughter-in-law, who was 33 years old, she's there, said she immediately burst into tears when she realized what was happening. Among the things that are now gone are her grandmother's ring, her grandfather's dog tags, along with belongings she inherited from her late uncle, and that stuff is all now gone. Why didn't they stop and think? Why didn't they stop and call? I'm out of things that I can't get back, the woman now says. So this is crazy, but we've heard of stories similar to this. Now, the woman and her husband have filed a lawsuit against the landlord because the landlord refused to do anything about this. According to the complaint, a cleanout company hired by the landlord made a mistake and cleaned out the wrong property. The lawsuit accuses the rental company of violating Florida statutes, which forbid a landlord from removing tenants' belongings unless they've been evicted or the property's been surrendered or abandoned. And even then, you got to be careful because are they current on their rent? So in court filings, the landlord argued that its vendor mistakenly removed personal property and the company could not be held liable. An attorney for the landlord filed a motion to have the case dismissed. A judge has also ordered a mediation, which is scheduled for a couple weeks from now. The rental company, the woman said, had no right coming in and violating us. The family seeks more than $10,000 in damages, and again, that's simply to get them into court. That's the jurisdictional limit, I suspect. But here's the issue, a couple issues. One of which is quite simple. You might say, Steve, who do you sue? Well, you sue them both. You sue the landlord and you sue the cleanout company. And now we don't know, and you would not know this by simply walking through the house to go, okay, who screwed up here? Somebody screwed up, but we don't know yet who. But understand that there's a concept in the law of agency, meaning that someone can be your agent, and if they're your agent, you are the principal. The principal-agent relationship creates some legal liabilities and obligations for both parties. And so let's talk hypotheticals here, okay? Landlord, cleaner. Okay, let's use those two words. Landlord hires a cleaner and says, go clean out this house. And the cleaner cleans out that house. And that was the wrong house. Well, that would sound like that's the landlord's problem, right? If the landlord says, go clean out this house, and they accidentally clean out that house, that sounds like the cleaner's problem. But you have to understand that underneath all of this is the idea that the landlord is hiring somebody to do work that they could do themselves if they wanted to. And so by sending somebody else out to do their work for them, there is in the law a concept that the principal is in charge of the agent and should direct and control them to where they do things legally. And so you can't simply hire somebody and have them run amok and then go, well, they're not me, I hired them, there's somebody else. You should be supervising and overseeing what they do to prevent these kinds of things from happening. And the weird part about it is I went and looked, and the article that I'd done before, I did a video back in September, was about an apartment in Dallas. So if there's an apartment complex, and I say, go clean out apartment 222, not room 222, apartment 222. And they go and they accidentally clean out 322. Well, you'd go, okay, that's a mistake. We see how it happened. But the point is that both of those apartments are under the direction of the landlord. You wonder how it's possible that these people cleaned out the wrong home by accident, because does the landlord really own every single home in this area? And where is the home they're supposed to clean out? And how did they confuse the two? That's the tricky part, because if I had to guess, I would say it's quite likely here that the owner, the landlord, is the one who screwed up and accidentally gave the wrong address to somebody. And so this is the kind of thing where when you're in business or doing anything where the stakes are quite high, you've got to double check this stuff. You know, we've heard of stories, and I'm going far afield here, but just giving you an example. We've heard stories of doctors going in for surgery and removing the wrong leg, okay? I've heard of more than one example of that. Doctor goes in, he's supposed to amputate the person's right leg, and they accidentally amputate the left leg. And then when the person wakes up and goes, that's the wrong leg, they go, oh, okay, and then they amputate the right leg. Now the person's got no legs. If you're doing that kind of work that's that important and cannot be undone, you gotta really double check your work. And so I've seen people who've gone to the hospital, gonna have a leg operated on, and the doctor will come in with a magic marker and go, which leg are we operating on? My right leg. Your right leg? This one, this one, this one. This leg, and unless you write things like this leg with arrows on the correct leg, and then not this leg on the other leg, because that's how careful they want to be. So if you are a landlord and you're sending out cleaning crews to empty out houses, you've got to understand how high the stakes are for the houses that are not supposed to be cleaned out. And I do have to question the cleaning company when they come into a place and everything's in boxes and it looks like it's all been moved in. Now, you know, but Steve, maybe somebody's about to be moving out and they boxed it all up. Well, if somebody's boxed it all up and they're getting ready to leave, do you really throw it all away, or do you call them and go, hey, since the stuff's all boxed up, can you get it out today? Because then you would have found out, oh, it's boxed up because we're moving in, you're at the wrong address. And so I've seen it before, and I've filed lawsuits in situations where we weren't sure who was at fault on something. And so you look at a case and you go, okay, it's either the person in charge gave bad directions, or it's the principal gave the correct directions, but the agent did something wrong. And so here's one also as a pro tip, and I'm being serious here. If you are a principal of some kind of organization and you hire another company to come in and do work that you could do yourself, you've got to make sure that they're solvent and that they follow directions, and hopefully they're somehow, you can hold them responsible if they screw up really badly. And there are concepts about them I'm not going to get heavily into because it varies from state to state, but it has to do with how much direction and control the principal has over the agent and the work they're doing. And so I suspect that you're going to see both of these companies in this case for a little while as a judge says, you guys are going to have to sort this out, but I'm not letting anybody out because it'd be very, very difficult to say that something this egregious happened and we're not going to hold the principal liable at any level for what happened here, because obviously it just doesn't seem likely that could have happened that way. I think it's much more likely that the landlord accidentally gave the wrong address to the cleaning company. But I could be wrong on that. So we'll wait and see how it shakes up. But as of right now, lawsuit pending, and a court has ordered them to go to mediation. In case you're curious about that, if it's not binding mediation, courts can suggest it to parties, and they can suggest it in a way that you will want to take it, meaning that we'll go to mediation because a mediator might be able to get this to resolve. But if it doesn't resolve that way, then you go back to court. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, the family says they're homeless. Presumably, they could still move in because they paid the rent, but everything they had is gone. So they've got no possessions after the rental company hired a cleanout firm to empty the wrong place and change the locks. Mackenzie Tatanani wrote that for the Daily Mail. Chris sent it, and we'll see what happens. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The beaten path is the safest, but the traffic's terrible.